Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one and the only SIR HALE speaks in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one and the only SIR HALE speaks in the building.
Good evening, everybody. What's going on? It's good to see everybody tonight. I'm really glad that you guys have joined in tonight. We're going to have a good show. It's been a little bit of time, but before we get started, let me know if we're coming through loudly and clearly. I want to make sure that we have a quality stream and that there are no interruptions. So, how are we coming through? I've shared this on 4 different of my pages. So you should see this on the SIR HALE Speaks on YouTube, on Facebook. And then there are a couple of other channels that this has been shared to as well. So you guys do me a favor, chime in, tune in, let me know where you guys are watching from, what platform. We've got some really great news today that I'm super excited about on our Facebook page. I want to say last week we were somewhere around the 500-600 followers, and as of maybe an hour ago, I think we're over 4,000, and this has just been within a week. So a shout out, much love to everybody who has supported us on Facebook. Our YouTube platform had grown some years ago, but now our Facebook platform is starting to get some traffic as well. So much love to everybody. So if you're watching this tonight, just comment me and let me know if you're watching from Facebook or from YouTube. I kind of want to gauge where our audience is coming from as I work to build up our platforms. All right, well, listen, guys, we're in for a great show tonight, and I need to say this because this show has been booked for months now, and I'm absolutely extremely ridiculous. I must say I allowed my schedule to dictate me getting online, and so what I've done to mitigate this so that there are no excuses, I built a studio right here in our room. So there was no excuses. I don't have any reason why I can't get up and go to the office. I can't say my schedule is too hectic. I have eliminated that excuse so we can give you guys a fantastic show. Now, let me know if we're coming through loudly and clearly. I want to make sure that we're good. It's a fantastic Friday evening, and I'm really glad that each of you guys are here. So we're gonna have a really good show tonight. So we're gonna start with the premise that I said some time ago, and that is. Do our relationships tell on us? That's the premise of what we're talking about tonight. We're going to really deal with this. And I've taken some time off. You guys know I've been in my studies. I restart my master's program next month. So we've been really, we had several arguments about what are your qualifications, what are your credentials, what are your level of studies. And that prompted me to mitigate that excuse, to really focus on being educated so that we're not just going around shoving our opinions down people's throats, but that the perspective we have, we've sat with it long enough for it at least to be valid, right? So we've done that. And so I'm going to present this to you based on the years that I've been coaching, the years in ministry, my research, from a psychological perspective. Now, tonight, let's make this abundantly clear. We're not giving any clinical advice. We're not giving any clinical diagnosis. This is not a substitute for therapy. This is just me sharing my thoughts based on my Bachelor of Science in Psychology, based on my years of study, and just the amount of coaching that I've done. We're going to really dive into this. And if you're listening to this, then you'll probably find that some of this stuff is just normal life information. So it doesn't have to be anything sophisticated or scholastic. It just, you see this in your everyday life. So we're going to deal with this tonight, but our fundamental, the premise tonight is based on this question: do our relationships tell on us? So those of you who are watching tonight, do me a favor, just chime in, and I want you to answer that question: do our relationships tell on us? Do our relationships tell on us? That's what we're going to work from tonight. And to get into this, I'm going to share a clip of a video of a young lady who said something that I think was provocative. Her information is going to be in the TikTok. Please go find her, follow her on there. Let her know that you saw this on SIR HALE Speaks. If this is your first time seeing it, I want to give her credit because she shared a thought that I agree with. Now, I will say this: if there is some suggestive language in this, I want to apologize in advance. But this is for the sake of this conversation, I think this is going to be good for us. So let's take a listen. She says something that I think warrants discussion. Let's take a listen to what she has to say.
Broken somebody really is. Start loving them. I'm serious. That's the quick. You want to know how broken somebody really is? Start loving them. I'm serious. That's the quickest way to see what's going on inside of a person. Because healthy people don't just give love, they know how to receive it too.
Now, all of you, you've heard that, right? You heard what she said. I'm going to rewind it one time again. I'm going to rewind this really quickly because I want
the top three
I want
drugs
to make this clear what she
You want to
said.
know how broken somebody really is? Start loving them. I'm serious. That's the quickest way to see what's going on inside of a person. Because healthy people don't just give love, they know how to receive it too. But when somebody is still carrying around unhealed wounds, your love will expose them.
Now, let's deal with that. And good to see you, A Tribe Called Harris. It's good to see you tonight. Glad that you're here. I think that what she said, now we could say, have our opinions, but based on my research, based on my lived experience, what she said is absolutely valid. There is some truth to this. You ever hear somebody complain about they're in a relationship and no matter what they do, it's never enough, it's not good enough. They can love, they can be there to support, and the person has an issue with receiving that love. Well, there is some truth to that. Think about the example here. A woman can have a great man who loves her, cares about her, and she'll kind of treat that guy with a cold shoulder, kind of treat him as if, he is just waiting on him to make a fault so that she can validate the insecurities that she's already had about the relationship. And then once he does something that mimics that, then it's like, see, I knew it was going to be bad. The same is true in the reverse. Men can have a beautiful woman who is brilliant, who actually cares about him. But if he hasn't healed, no matter what she does, he is receiving what she does with a level of suspicion. And this begs the question. This brings us back to the topic. Do our relationships tell on us? This is why you'll notice that healthy people cannot be in a toxic relationships. Conversely, toxic people won't be happy in a healthy relationship because we bring our experience to it. But listen, I want to play some more of this so that we can really get some more context, because this is going to be fundamental for what we talk about.
They'll question your intentions. They'll push you away. They'll think every kind gesture has a hidden motive. They'll sabotage the relationship before it even gets a chance to grow because they're trying to protect themselves from getting hurt again. Oh, wait, and here's the hard part. It doesn't always mean they don't love you. Sometimes it means they've never experienced love that feels safe. The way somebody receives love will tell you everything you need to know about the healing that they still need to do.
Now let's deal with that. I want us to really deal with that. It is not just about you giving love, it is the ability to actually receive that love. For those of you who are watching, let me just ask you a personal question. Do you struggle with receiving love? Have you been hurt to the degree where you receive love with some suspicion, kind of just waiting on something to go wrong, waiting for the person to hurt you? If so, we're going to deal with that tonight, and we're going to do so in a way that is considerate, that is caring. We're not trying to beat anybody down, but I do want to see relationships get better. In order to do that, we've got to deal with some important things tonight. Okay, let's play a little bit more. We're almost done.
You can't love the trauma out of somebody. You can't convince someone that they're worthy if they don't believe it themselves. Love can reveal what's broken, but only they can choose to heal it. So stop taking every reaction personally. Sometimes you're not fighting against their feelings for you. You're fighting against everything that happened to them before you came into their life.
Now, again, I'm going to repeat that what she said is absolutely brilliant. Sometimes you are trying to love somebody who hasn't dealt with their own issues. And there is this myth. I don't know where it has come from. I don't know who started it, but this person needs to be arrested because there's this idea that you can fix someone, that you being a great woman, you being a great man, it is sufficient to fix years of trauma that hasn't been addressed. And that if you're just kind enough, and if you are just considerate enough, and you make them feel good about themselves, that this will be sufficient to change them. And I want to save you from years of depression and stress and intense therapy sessions. You can't fix anybody. Okay? Can we agree on that point? You can't fix anybody. You can be somebody's support system. You can assist them. You can love them. You can show empathy to them, but it is not your task to fix anyone. That is their job. Because if you're responsible for fixing them, you're going to be responsible for maintaining that fixedness. And that's too much weight for anybody to carry. Okay, so we've got that. We've heard this. Now, let me bring to the stage what we're going to be talking about. And this is what we're really going to be dealing with tonight, because I want to leave you with something that is going to cause you to think and to really think through your relationships, not just romantic, not just friendships, but every relationship that has influenced the person you've become today. I want us to deal with this because I'm seeing a culture of people who simply cannot relate to each other anymore. Men are having a difficult time relating to men. Men are having a difficult time relating to women. And then families are breaking down. You guys have seen and witnessed the level of brokenness that families are experiencing, where people are just completely going no contact. And they're not going contact only because something has gone wrong. A lot of people are going no contact because when we try to have deep conversations to resolve traumas and to resolve issues, it is met with a level of resistance and in some cases hostility. And it forces the person who has exhausted themselves from trying to fix it, they have to resolve it themselves that is not going to change. And then they have to go take care of their mental health so that the issue that they're having on one level doesn't affect their family, their spouses, and their children. So we're going to deal with that tonight. Okay, guys, are we ready to jump into this tonight? So again, our premise today is, our question is, most people are broken. And the question that we have is, do our relationships tell on us? Okay. A Trap Card Harris says, love up on your person and see how they respond. Absolutely. And he answers the question and says, yes, they do. Relationships are mirrors. Absolutely. So let's dig into this. So the points that we're going to address tonight, that we're going to deal with, is going to be straightforward. We're going to deal with the reality of childhood neglect. We're going to deal with the exposure to narcissism at an early age and what that does to you in your adulthood. We're going to tackle low self-esteem. We're going to deal with materialism. And then we're going to conclude this with a reflection and a call to action so that we can actually change. Von Eric, it's good to see you. Glad that you're here tonight. Okay, so here's something. So what I'm sharing with you guys tonight is stuff that you guys can look online. You guys can do your research. You guys can see this. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but it cannot be understated how childhood neglect, the significance it plays as you develop into your adulthood. And I bring this up because I think so often a lot of people romanticize their childhoods and believe that just because they survived their childhood, that them adapting to neglect equates to strength that is healthy. And the reality is that it's not the case. When you are exposed to childhood neglect, and I want to help explain what this is. Childhood neglect is, you think about childhood, ABUSE. You think about what that is. So think about, the caretakers, parents completely using, whether this is verbal or physical, strength to inflict hurt on the child. Think about that's what that is. Well, the inverse to that is neglect. So this means that what a child actually needed to thrive, not just survive, the emotional support, the encouragement, the discipline, the things that they needed to actually develop a strong foundation for who they are as an individual was neglected. And so because of that neglect, that child is forced to find some type of supplement, often unhealthy, as a way to cope with what they are not receiving in life. Now, think about it this way, something very simple. If you are somebody who grew up with a refrigerator full of food that is healthy and good, and you were cultured to eat that, then you understand, to eat healthy. Somebody who does not come from that, where they did not necessarily have a refrigerator full of food, will find different things to just satisfy that hunger. And oftentimes those things are unhealthy. Well, as it is in the natural, so it is emotionally and spiritually. When you are neglected, and the truth is, and I say this with a degree of sympathy and empathy, I say this with real care. A lot of the parents that raise children, particularly millennials and Gen X, a lot of parents were ill-equipped to raise thriving children, because many of the parents who had children either did so on accident or had children without resolving the inner turmoil and issues and trauma they went through. And there was a belief that as long as the child was fed, the child had a roof over their head, and the child did not pass away, then that this means that the child was successfully raised. And this is not a slight to anybody. This is just a reality of the facts, that a child who survives does not mean that they're in a position to thrive. Now, can we agree to that point? And again, I don't want to spend tonight, I don't want to berate anybody, because a lot of people really didn't know better. And in my coaching, in the ministry and in speaking, I'm starting to hear stories come out that a lot of people were really raising their children based on how they were raised. So if they were talked to real strong, and they were talked to aggressively and put down as a way to build their strength, and they survived it, and if they have some level of success, if they got a good job, if they they got a good position, if they become successful, then success now becomes the justification for perpetuating those negative behaviors, because if I survived this negativity and became successful, well, then it must be good. And that is so far from the truth. Okay, guys, are we with me tonight on this one? So this is why we're spending time dealing with childhood neglect, because those who deal with this are at a significant disadvantage and are more prone to feelings like anxiety and depression. The way that they attach to people is impacted, because their upbringing, that neglect, creates an imbalance in how they adapt and adjust to their adulthood, and particularly in relationships as they get older, right? So a lot of us, we see the explosion. Just look at the statistics, look at the psychological research. And one of the things you will see is the explosion in anxiety. You will see an explosion in depression. And so I think that this kind of topic is necessary, because it puts into focus that our kids are not just crazy. They're not just bad. A lot of our children are the manifestation of neglect that our parents and their parents felt. And so tonight is an opportunity for us to address that and to break it. Okay. Okay, we got it. So we're moving along. So we've got childhood neglect. We've got the idea that childhood neglect, not having your emotional needs met, you not having the things that you need to thrive as a child. And I'm not talking about just being praised. I am also talking about discipline. You having a healthy sense of a foundation. You knowing that you have people who love you, and that every mistake you make is not a life-altering, love-shifting mistake, that it's okay, you make a mistake and you learn from it, and that your worth is not tied to you getting everything perfectly correct, right? So kids who don't have that neglect end up looking and seeking validation from every place. Now just think about this. Lady Hale, good to see you. Like, just really think about what I'm saying. Think about over the last 25, 30 years, just think about everything that has shifted. We've got busier in terms of work. We've got busier in terms of trying to be successful. And there is an unparented generation that we see. We see a deep unparented generation. And think about how at the apex of children not being parented, because now we've got, the cost of living is going up. We've gone through recessions. We've gone through, scares in terms of, industry. We've seen technological revolution. We've seen AI take over things. We went through a pandemic. All these things have happened and culminated to where we have to be so busy as adults and parents just to survive and take care of our children that we don't have the household structure to make sure that they're getting the attention that they need. So we're not passing down morals. We're not passing down ethics and values. We're not doing that because we don't have time to. And then guess what's there as the supplement? That good old social media. So social media now gives us the ability to create content and to shape our perspectives. And it gives us all these wonderful tools to shape how we want to present ourselves to the world. If you are overweight, you can look skinny. If you are unattractive, you can look beautiful. If you're not that educated, you can sound sophisticated, because now social media has created this avenue where you can bypass the actual steps of development and look like something that your upbringing didn't prepare you to be. Right? That childhood neglect is an attention-seeking wound that we trade. Since we didn't get the likes and the validation from our parents, we get some version of that from likes from strangers who we don't know. And because we don't have that foundation, any criticism is a wound to us. So we just block them. We just dislike that. We just talk about them. And we only listen to people who give us the kind of praise that we want because we didn't have that upbringing. Can everybody see how the interplay between these things? When you don't have parenting, you don't have that structure in upbringing, social media becomes the medium you use to project a version of yourself that you wish to be, bypassing the actual work that needs to be done to be that in real life. Okay, everybody, are we clear on this? So now we're at this place where we've gone through childhood neglect. Now let's add a layer to this, because we are in the generation where narcissism is the premier psychological issue that maybe it is, I won't say that it's the dominant one, but it's probably the most talked about one. It is narcissism. Now, I want to pause here and talk about this, because so often the concept of, that's a narcissist is thrown out without understanding the psychological research and the basis from which this emerges. So if you have experienced narcissistic abuse and you are recovering from that, you have a perspective. If you are somebody who has seen somebody go through narcissistic abuse, but haven't been exposed to the literature or been exposed to it in your own life, then you don't believe that little sweet Susan is a narcissist. You can't believe that brother Billy Bob is a raging narcissist, because the manifestations are so absurd. It is hard to believe that somebody so sweet. They're old. They're 60. You know what I mean? They're 40 something and they go to church. These are politicians. She's a nurse. They present well to the community. They seem loving. There is no way that somebody who presents well can actually be a narcissist. And that's really what makes victims of narcissistic abuse feel like they're going crazy, because their reality is marked by somebody or some people who present to the public what they are not in real life. So public persona, it's different than private persona. To the outside world, these are just loving people. In the inside world, they are destroying those, because a narcissist is not focused on empathizing. They're not focused on loving. They're not focused on developing, because a narcissist needs to be the center of attention. The narcissist needs to have all eyes on them, and they need narcissistic supplies. And this ties into adults. Some people were raised by narcissists. I need everybody to understand this because there are a lot of people who feel overwhelmed and who feel alone because when they try to tell people they care about, particularly relatives or close friends of the actual narcissists, the people may listen to them, but they'll start to be apologists for the narcissist. And they'll start trying to make the child who experienced the narcissistic abuse, they'll try to get them to understand why the person is narcissistic and give them grace. And the person who is dealing with the grief and the trauma of it all is now forced to put their issues to the side to placate and to understand the person who is inflicting the damage. And so we often talk about, that's a narcissist there, but there are two things that can happen. If you are being raised by a narcissist, two things can happen. Either it can shape that narcissistic behavior in you, whether or not you are clinically diagnosed with NPD, or you develop those narcissistic habits. That's the first thing that could happen. Your exposure to narcissistic behaviors can create a template for how you act based on what you saw. That's one thing. But the other thing that's not talked about as much is that when you're exposed to narcissism, whether this is your father or your mother or some caretaker that has influence on you, it can set you up to attract and to entertain narcissists later in your life. Guys, this is big stuff here. Guys, this is big stuff here. Everybody is like, you picked wrong in your relationship. How did you end up with a narcissist? You knew better. When you are cultured to accept something as a child, the only way to break that is when you are exposed to something new for long enough that gives you a perspective on the unhealthy lifestyle you've been living. So it's not enough to say, well, you picked wrong. Well, what made me pick that way? It is what I've been exposed to. So if a young man or young woman has been exposed to a narcissistic father or mother, they've created a tolerance for that. And though they've likely developed the need to be people pleasers, they develop the need to go over and beyond and neglect themselves just to prove their loyalty to somebody else. And those are types of traits that narcissists love. If you're willing to abandon you to love me, well, heck, this is guaranteed narcissistic supply. And childhood neglect, narcissism, you guys see how this stuff builds on it? The root of all of these negative things stems from, childhood neglect, not getting what you need. You end up having to become broken in life and be exposed to such deleterious experiences until one moment in your life makes you have a wake-up call, and it stems from childhood. Now, I'm not blaming everything on childhood. I'm simply making the argument that a lot of the things that show up in our adulthood are things that we did not address in our childhood. Okay? Moving forward with this, so we've got this, do our relationships mirror us? So we've talked about childhood neglect. And we've talked about exposure to narcissism and how that creates an attraction to narcissists. You find yourself repeating in your relationships the things that you saw in your early experiences without questioning whether or not it is healthy until something hits you. So we've got that. The next one is childhood neglect, exposure to narcissism, and this creates or exposes low self-esteem. And low self-esteem is often one of those things that are misconstrued because we often think that low self-esteem shows up in somebody looking disheveled, somebody walking with their head down and talking, with a low register in their voice. Their appearance is down. And sometimes I'll say this term, and it may not be a clinical one, but you'll understand when I say this. You can be a high functioning person with low self-esteem, right? You can present because you've learned how to adapt to the work environment. You've learned how to be in a relationship, or if you are part of a church or some other religious organization, you figured it out how to just adapt to get along. But when you have low self-esteem, you can be high functioning, but the low quality relationships say more about you than a high paid position, because your relationship is the ultimate mirror of how you think about yourself. Everybody turn this up. I'm going to clip this one and I'm going to spend some time on this for the next week. I can tell you what you think of yourself by observing who you are in relationships with. Run that back. Say it one more time. I can tell you precisely what you think about yourself. I don't need to look at your car. I don't need to look at your bank account. I don't need to see where you live. I don't need to know your zip code. I don't need to know any of those things. I can tell you what you think of yourself about what you're willing to accept and tolerate. Because what you're willing to accept and tolerate speaks to who you think you are. Now, of course, this can go either way. Some people can think that they're more than what they really are, and some people can think that they're not as much as they actually are. Regardless to the polarity of it all, I can look at your relationships, who you are willing to date, who you are willing to say I do to, who you're willing to stay with. I can look at your relationships and tell you what you think about yourself, because every relationship that we accept is a mirror. It is a window into how we see ourselves. A high quality man can't help but find a high quality woman. Anything other than that, it won't work. A high quality woman has to be with a high quality man. Anything other than that won't work. Anytime you see people in relationships who complain about what they're in without making any adjustments, is somebody who cannot have high self-esteem. Because somebody who has high self-esteem will have high functioning behaviors, will have high aptitude decisions, because they have to reconcile their self-esteem with their reality. And anything that deviates from who they are as a person creates this cognitive dissonance that they simply can't live with. So they have to create healthy relationships. This is why you see certain people, go in no contact with negative, toxic families, because they have come to the conclusion that I can't reconcile this toxicity with the person that I am becoming. So this is not going to work. I'm going to have to find, shout out to a Tribe Called Harris, I'm going to have to build my own tribe. I'm going to have to build my own community. I'm going to have to find my own people, because we can't coexist for a long time with people who don't mirror, who don't understand what we are, who are not a compliment to us. It is only a matter of time before that relationship disintegrates. Okay? I can tell you what you think of you by observing your relationships. Okay? This is big, everybody. This is huge. And so low self-esteem shows up in areas. I was good to see you, Bravo with Sheila Network. Good to see you tonight. Glad that you're here. So low self-esteem, it is developed in childhood, but it shows up in adulthood. And so you see people who are always over-explaining themselves, people who are always over-apologizing. They get something, it's not even wrong, but they're used to apologizing, right? They assume that there's going to be conflict, so they just start a fight, right? Instead of them receiving love, they're always in the mode of validating that love is actually real, right? In moments where they need to speak up about certain things, they are silent about certain things. Now, let me pause here and say this. I know this firsthand because I too was a young man who had low self-esteem. I will be the first to admit my self-esteem was low all through my teenage years and all through my 20s. I had low self-esteem, but because I was gifted and I spoke well, and I've always been a brainiac, I've always been somebody who loved books, I was able to mask that low self-esteem by having a polished presentation. But if you notice, in critical moments in life, I couldn't say no to certain people. I was unable to have healthy boundaries. I was not necessarily able to speak truth to power when I thought that it would create a conflict that might shake the foundation of our relationship. And somebody with low self-esteem will allow themselves to be silent in moments where they need to speak up. It was until I got into my 30s and I really thought about, what message am I sending my sons and my daughters? What message am I sending to those who watch me, who tune into SIR HALE Speaks, to the people that I go around speaking to our church? What am I presenting? And once I really realized that I am presenting, I'm a representation of somebody who is afraid to be himself, I cannot empower people living afraid. And so it taught me how to address, it forced me to address the things that were said, you're stupid, because, the last grade that you actually completed was the second grade. And, you were homeschooled, for the third grade. And then after all of that, you didn't graduate anything. There's no certificate, and you got a GED, and you started off poor, you were homeless, and you got it wrong in life. All of those things created a dissonance in me that made me feel like everybody around me saw me how I was thinking of myself. And that low self-esteem made me take stuff I would never take. It made me silent on things that I told other people to speak up about. It made me believe that I deserved the bare minimum and that people who came into my life should get the very best of me because I don't deserve them. And if you ever see somebody in a relationship, you could tell that this is off. Like, this is imbalanced. This don't even make sense what's going on now. Oftentimes people are trapped in current relationships because they made commitments when they had low self-esteem. You can look at this in business. You can look at this in friendships. You can look at this in marriage and romantic relationships. Oftentimes people with low self-esteem attach too soon because they don't think that they are worthy or deserving or that they are capable of attracting something quality. Because again, I can tell you what you think of yourself. Somebody finish that for me. I can tell you what you think of yourself by looking at your relationships. What do you think about yourself? Who you think you are, what you think you deserve? I can see that through the relationships you accept and by what you tolerate. Okay? Are y'all with me tonight? I see 8 of you watching. Are you guys with me? So let's move on. So we got this. So we see low self-esteem. Now we got childhood neglect. We've got exposure to narcissism. We've got now the onset in the reality of low self-esteem, and some of the most beautiful people, some of the most intelligent people, some of the people who have the greatest talents have low self-esteem. And I think this is why it is important for podcasts like this and for A Tribe Called Harris and Bravo with Sheila and so many other great content creators. It is necessary to listen to people who can take the reality of your situation and then give you some steps on how to overcome that. Like, I'm on here and I recognize that I've never done a good job of letting people know that I can speak at this level because I've been there too. I know what it's like to have low self-esteem and nobody really knows about it. Until they start observing, why is he accepting that? Or why is she doing that? And people who understand that are able to notice that this is high functioning low self-esteem. Now I'm going to write that down. I think I'm going to write something on that one. High functioning low self-esteem. All right, let's move on, guys. The next one is, so we got childhood trauma, we got exposure to narcissism, we have low self-esteem. And so now we have a generation of people who, because they don't have that foundation, their core is undeveloped or underdeveloped. There is no healthy sense of self. Their relationships have failed in many different areas. And so we're failing at relationships. So now let's just focus on acquiring materialistic things. Let's focus on the nice bags, on the nice rings. Let's focus on, aesthetics. Let's focus on having the nicest hair. Let's focus on the acquisition of material things. I'm going to show you guys my pictures when I'm on vacation. You guys are going to see my lavish life. I'm never going to show you that it's not really like that. You don't need to know that. I'm going to show y'all my highlights. Look at my Insta stories. Look at my reels. I'm going to show you the best part of my life. And I'm going to show you things because I get a chance to create the illusion that I am this fixed, healthy, happy, successful person, because instead of me dealing with the things that matter to me, I mask what hurts by materialistic things. And the problem with this is we don't know when an epidemic is going to happen. The problem with that is you don't know, what's going to happen with what you have. You don't know what's going to happen with the market. And if you're defining yourself by things that depreciate and appreciate based on a number of factors, things that could change in an instant, and you don't have a healthy sense of self, a healthy nucleus from which your self-esteem emerges, there's only so much money can buy. You know what I mean? It's only so much your money can buy. It's only so many trips you can go on. It's only so many cars you can drive. It's only so many shoes you can buy. It's only so many watches you can afford. If you don't really deal with that thing, if you don't deal with childhood trauma, you don't deal with those issues, you will keep on buying stuff and have a closet full of things and still feel empty, right? You'll have a house full of stuff and still feel alone. You'll be driving and still not know what drives you, because dealing with internal turmoil cannot be cured by the acquisition of materialistic things. Okay? Okay, guys, so we got that? And I'm calling this out because we have created a materialistic culture. And just think about that. How many people are unwilling to date certain people because they can't provide a certain lifestyle for them? You know, people who are not willing to go on dates because it's not at the most grandest place. And we have in many ways lost our humanity and our ability for human connection. Like it used to be. Now let me take you on a little journey. Man, when I was coming up, when I was a shorty, we didn't need nothing fancy to have a good time. How come when I was a kid, let us go to the park. Let us go to the park. You know, back at that time, you know, we can get on swings, we can get on the seesaw, we get on the merry-go-round. If you had a couple dollars, there was typically a candy store around. And if you were not close enough to a candy store back in those days, an ice cream truck used to go around. You heard the ice cream truck, you take you about 50 cents, maybe $1, and you can get you and your girl, get y'all a couple of ice cream, and y'all sitting around talking and having a good time. You know, you eat your popsicle, you eat your ice cream. Now y'all walking around the block, y'all playing hide and go seek. You guys are just having a good time. And we didn't need all of these extra things because we cared about each other as people. That kind of friendship, if you developed it as a child, I mean, you guys can go through the highs and lows of life, but you found a friend for life because they were not with you because of your stuff. They were with you because of the stuff you were made of. And whether or not you have those things, you can have a good time with a double stack, sharing some fries and get 2 straws and share a drink, because it wasn't about things, it was about each other. I think we've lost that. I don't know that people still go to parks. I don't even know. Come on, right, Mr. Heath. Look, a Tropical Hair just needed a basketball. Absolutely. You know, back in that day, now, Lady Hale, I don't want to, you know, this is when I was way before we was thought of. You know, you want to have a good time and show your girl, y'all play one-on-one. You know, let her get a shot up and just block it because she needs to know who the man is. You understand what I'm saying? And if she good and she crossed you, that might require some therapy. But you know, you have a good time, you play because it was about spending time with each other. And I think that so often we have lost that, the ability to just want to connect with somebody else. Why? It is because we are materialistic. We're materialistic. You know what I mean? And Lady Hale, I think you know about the basketball. If you think about Duncanville's First Baptist Church, I'm pretty sure I beat you in 101. I think it was 21-0. But I mean, that's a different story. We can have the discussion at some other time offline, right? So everybody, is just making sense what I'm saying? So if we value ourselves based on materialistic things, then this is why we put a demand on people to give us more materials. Because again, our relationships are mirrors. And however you feel about yourself, you expect the person who is coming into your life to validate that, whether it is healthy or not. In this case, if you're defining yourself by materialistic things, you're in for a rude awakening. The cars depreciate. Homes depreciate depending on the market. If you don't have a healthy sense of self, nothing you can buy is going to fix that. Okay? At least 7 points. At least 7 points. No, she did. You know what? To that point, Lady Help, Michael Jordan, he wants to say something about that point you made.
Stop it. Get some help.
So I didn't want to say that our special announcement came in. There was definitely not 7 points, but we'll have that conversation a little bit later. We'll have a discussion. We'll have it a little bit later. But everybody got what I'm saying on this materialistic thing. And so that's so we'll address that. So let's moving forward. All right. So now here is the challenge to all of us. Everybody who is watching this, whether you are on Facebook, this is YouTube, and you are watching this in some upcoming class that I'll have, this is for all of us. Whether you've gone through childhood trauma, whether you have been exposed to narcissism, whether you have had high functioning, low self-esteem, whatever you have gone through, whether you are trying to define yourself by materialistic things, the only way to break these things is these points here. You have to be able to reflect. This is what therapy is for. This is what your faith is for. As a matter of fact, if you're religious, repentance hinges on your ability to self-reflect. In order to break any habit, in order to grow in any area, you have to be able to reflect. That means taking the risk of being ashamed for a moment, of feeling guilty for a moment, but allowing yourself to also receive grace, to allow yourself to feel all the feelings, because this is necessary in order to grow. In order to self-reflect, you have to be willing to go back and feel all the feelings. Think about where we've gotten it wrong at it and what caused us to get there without blaming anybody. Being patient with yourself, because you cannot fix something if you're unwilling to look at what needs to be fixed. And in order to do that, it requires the courage to self-reflect. The second thing to this, after you reflect, you can't stay there, because if you stay there too long, then this can move you into unhealthy loathing. You find yourself, woe is me, and my life is so terrible, and everything is horrible, everybody is wrong, and woe is me. And that's not what we're trying to get to. Self-reflection sets you up for growth, right? It sets you up, so let's say you grew up and you didn't see healthy relationships, you didn't see healthy communication. So you always ready to argue. Every time there's a conflict, every time there's an issue, ladies, if your man is talking to you, you're gonna give him the eyes because you really don't like what he's saying. You don't like what's going on. Men, if your woman is talking, it gets heated. I mean, you ready to go toe to toe with her because you can't believe what she is saying, right? So if you didn't grow up seeing healthy dynamics, healthy patterns, then you have to have some self-reflection and ask yourself this question: is the way that I'm communicating creating the outcomes that I'm going for? When did I have my last successful conversation? Does my conversations end in resolution, or does it further create arguments? All of those questions are part of self-reflection. And then once you have an answer to that, and hopefully you don't just rely on your own perspective, because sometimes we assess ourselves too high, but you talk to the people who are having those experiences with you. Once you have that information, once you've reflected, then you are ready to start growing. And so this might mean before you respond, you listen. This might mean you ask, for clarity. This might actually mean, instead of you responding right away and waiting for your turn to speak, you take some time and you get clarity. You take a minute and you ingest it, and you listen and you practice listening to what is said without projecting meaning that might not be there. That's part of the growth mindset. And then, of course, after you have reflected, you have, you started on that growth journey, you have to have some milestones. You have to have something, because this is how we maintain accountability. It is, we've identified a problem, we've set a trajectory for growth, and now my spouse is going to be my accountability partner. So if I'm too reactionary, or if I'm too critical too quickly, we got a word, a special word that we use. And once I hear that word, that lets me know that I'm high conflict right now, or whatever that thing is. But we see what's going on here, guys. So it's, having a problem is one thing, but the question is, what are you doing about it? Right? So that is the focus there. And then the last piece here, and that answers the question, is, do our relationships telling us? The answer to that is an emphatic Absolutely yes. Our relationships tell on us. Right? Everybody's relationship, our relationship track record is our resume for who we think we are. Right? What you're attracted to. When I hear people talk about this is my type of person and I'm going for my type, we say type like this is something that can't be changed, or if it's by default healthy. And sometimes our types are not good for us. So, yes, our relationships tell on us, and it really gives us a compass for what we need to work on. Your relationships would tell you if you have low self esteem. The way that you were in your relationships would tell you if you have an unhealthy attachment, behavior. It'll tell you if you are conflict oriented. Your relationships tell on you if you're willing to listen and if you're willing to look. So here's our challenge for this week. I want you to pick a relationship, and I want you to be critical about your interactions, and I want you to ask, what is this reaction actually about? But before there was an issue, before you get angry, before you storm up, before you shut down, instead of you projecting a problem onto your spouse, instead of you projecting the problem onto your children, I want you to take an assessment of you and ask yourself, where does this feeling come from? What's really going on? And I think that's how we're going to get better. Okay, guys, that is my presentation for today. Guys, what did you think about this tonight? I think what I'll do, I think what we'll do really quickly is I'm going to drop the link really quickly because I want to provide an opportunity for anybody who has questions or perspective to add it to tonight's show. And then we'll conclude the show after this. But I hope you guys got something out of it. I hope you guys got something out of the show tonight. It has been a quite some time. I don't have my soundboard and all the other crazy things that I will have. But by the next show that I do, you guys will hear, some buzzes, some buzz and whistles, and you hear some more things. But guys, what's your thought about tonight's show? Did you agree or disagree? Did you have some perspective or questions? I'll drop the link in the chat, and I would love to hear from you. A shout out to A Tribe Called Harris. He says, promote conscious parenting and love and abundance because everything else is just he said, she said. Great show, bro. I appreciate it. Now, listen, it's been quite some time since I've done that, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate you.
Super Chat.
Let me run that back. That gives me heat too.
Super Chat.
Mr. He said, A Tribe Called Harris. Miss She said, I love y'all. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it tonight. You guys are our show's sponsor. And I'm going to be reaching out to you as well. I've got something that I'm planning on doing that I really would love your help on. As a matter of fact, let me show you guys something really quickly. Now, I got to be careful with Facebook because everybody be trying to be sexy online. So stuff be popping up and y'all will be thinking, pastor ain't got no integrity. I do. People be different. So let me show everybody something really quickly. Let me remove this. Let me remove that. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Take a look at this, y'all. So I am super appreciative because literally last week, I had about, I think maybe 700 followers on Facebook. And this is my brand page, right? So this is the SIR HALE Speaks Facebook page. I had about 700, 800 followers. Can you guys see the number it is today? Today we hit, and the numbers are still climbing. Today we hit 4.3 thousand followers on Facebook. Now that may be small to you. I know that may be small to you, but I have never, none of my brand pages, none of the things that I've done, I've been able to grow to over 1,000. And with that consistency and really putting out the message and being unafraid and unapologetic to put the message out, people has literally been connecting, and I'm super excited. I'm grateful for it. All kind of things are happening. So you guys are going to see a book come out. You guys are going to see my website updated, but the number is still growing. Earlier today, I said this to Lady Hill. I showed her that we were at like 3.5 thousand. That was about a couple hours ago. Now we're at 4.3, so we're still growing. And so while this wave is going on, I've called some friends. I'm going to be promoting their books. I'm going to be promoting their products, because I believe that when you are doing good and you are going up, you got to bring other people up as well. All right. With that being said, a Tribe Called Harris, since you're on the line, I wanted to say this as well. I got this idea that I want to run with about promoting accountability. Now, this is inspired by you guys promoting conscious parenting, promoting love and abundance. That word promote is a big word. And so I want to promote accountability. And so I'm going to be doing something interesting starting next week that I would love for us to collaborate on. So I'm going to be reaching out to that, because we can't promote it without a Tribe Called Harris. So I've been reaching out to you guys on that one. But again, I want to thank you so much for the love that you have shown tonight. I truly appreciate you. We have a caller who is in. I'm going to bring her up for a few seconds. We're going to have a good time, and we'll see what's going on now. Lady Hale, what is going on?
Hey, what's up, Sir Hale? Thank you so much for having me on your show today. I just wanted to come up here and just say to keep on doing what you're doing, because that was very powerful when you began to talk about how you can be a high functioning person who deals with low self-esteem. And it's so many adults, like grown people my age and even older and younger, who actually deal with that, and to bring that type of awareness to the internet and to YouTube and Facebook and all of those places, that is phenomenal. I know you're going to be changing lives, and I did want to say that because that was beautiful, but I also wanted to say I had at least 7 points. So tell the story right.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, chat, I want to apologize for you for what you just heard tonight. I don't know what's going on with Lady Hale. I'm going to do another PowerPoint presentation to address this, because this just ain't right. With that being said, everybody, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you guys for joining the show tonight. It has been real. If you guys enjoyed the show, please do me a favor. I've got to build my audience back up again. It's going to take me some time, but every like, every comment, every share means something. So my next milestone for YouTube is 100K subscribers. So every heart, all the love that you showed means a whole lot. So guys, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Sir Hale loves you. I appreciate you. Until next time, we'll talk with you guys again soon. Have a fantastic night. Have a fantastic night, y'all. I'll talk with you soon, and we'll see you guys a little bit later. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one and the only SIR HALE Speaks in the building.